This brings us to our last question, which we have already discussed in the analysis of the GS paper 2 that we did, but let us look at it more closely now. Okay, the question is, the new tri-nation partnership AUKUS is aimed at countering China's ambitions in the Indo-Pacific region. Is it going to supersede the existing partnerships in the region? Discuss the strength and the impact of the AUKUS in the present scenario. Answer it in 250 words and 15 marks. Syllabus, of course, is clear to you. The groupings agreements which involve or affect India's interests, so that is of concern for India. Quad and its nature was asked. AUKUS and its nature is being asked this year. So continuous theme, whenever an important agreement grouping comes up, which directly or indirectly has an impact on India's interest, we will have to analyze its nature. Okay, so that has to be one of the way of preparing that particular thing for the upcoming examination. Then current context is clear to everybody, that is Indo-Pacific is a focus. Quad is formed, formation of AUKUS. UK's participation and its role in the Indo-Pacific was also important for India. That's why this question. But the questions, different parts, if you look at this, okay, if you look at different parts of this particular question, different parts have focus on the existing partnerships and the things that are here. Okay, so in the discussion part of the current affairs, in the mains discussion, mains revision classes, what we did is we contrasted AUKUS with the Quad. Okay, in this particular part, we talked about the different goals and the dimensions of both these organizations. Okay, this is because the question was, is it going to supersede the existing partnerships? So we need to understand what are the goals and objectives of both these organizations. That's very simple, of these agreements, right? Or groupings, you can say. Plus, in this part, we talked about how AUKUS augments Quad. Is it really going to supersede? Or at some point, it is going to augment the Quad's capacity. At some point, it is going to also reduce the influence of the Quad. So we have to look at both these aspects. And these were the focus areas of us in the mains revision classes. That is, AUKUS reassures US of its commitments and all these things, right? So we talked about both these parts. Then we talked about what impact it could have for India. But the question was, how does it supersede the existing partnerships? So in the answer structure, we'll focus on first, what is AUKUS? Simply. Second, impact it has on existing partnerships. Existing partnerships are Quad, Five Eye Coalition, right? There are 3 to 4 agreements that are going on in this region, right? So we have to focus its impact on that. Plus, what are the strengths of the AUKUS that has been asked? Then impact will be both positive and negative. So this question had almost 4 to 5 parts. So you just write 2 points in all the parts. That would fetch you good marks in the examination. You do not have to focus overly on only one aspect of the question, right? That is how we approach the answer writing. That I've been talking about this thing in all the questions that we have discussed till now. Okay, so the introduction part could have been AUKUS is a military partnership, because we discussed about the objectives in the discussion. It's a military partnership which is formed by the members, of course, simple, wherein US is transferring critical nuclear submarine technology to Australia in order to counter Chinese influence, right? It is pretty clear to everybody, because this was the stated objective of the AUKUS, what was happening here. If you look at the bodies here, or the groupings that are here, it is Quad, Five Eyes Coalition, which is an intelligence coalition between these countries. Then we have AUKUS. Okay, so these are the partnerships that are likely to be affected. Okay, so if you had just mentioned about Quad, okay, that would not have affected you that much marks, but you have to mention about all these 3, plus who are the members. That makes it very interesting for the examiner that, okay, he or she knows about these existing partnerships and the membership of these partnerships, right? This brings us to the impact on the existing partnerships. Of course, it complements similar arrangements for the region, including the Five Eyes initiatives, ASEAN, and the Quad. Okay, plus impact would be in a multipolar world devoid of clear alliances, multilateral engagements like AUKUS does not necessarily overshadow the existing partnerships, because the question was, what is it going to supersede? So we'll address that part. Okay, what is the question? Question is it going to supersede the existing partnerships? So we'll justify that it does not necessarily supersede, although it seems so. It looks on the face of it that it's a military partnership and Quad is not a military partnership. But in this particular world where the Cold War has ended, the world is multipolar now. Different countries are aligning with different countries. There is no clarity in that particular part. That is why in a multipolar world, which is devoid of clear alliances, unilateral engagements are taking up. It is the order of the day, right? That is why West Asian Quad has been formed. Indo-Pacific Quad has been formed. AUKUS has been formed, right? So military engagements are the order of the day, right? That is why it does not necessarily overshadow the existing partnerships like Quad, because of the common agenda of free and open Indo-Pacific and ASEAN centrality. Fine. And what would we say? The common members of these groupings, which we have talked about in this first slide, need to focus on synergizing the functions of these partnerships to pursue their common interest. Fair enough? Then, strengths of the Quad, simple. Being first of its kind military alliance, it assures the regional countries of the US's commitment in the Indo-Pacific security architecture. So although US had formed Quad, it was saying that it is focusing on Indo-Pacific, which started in the Barack Obama regime, where he talked about pivot Asia policy and all these policies, right? So when the US has clearly stated its military objective in the security architecture in the Indo-Pacific, it shows the seriousness of the US, or how much focus or importance does the US give to the Indo-Pacific region, right? So that is the strength of the AUKUS. Then it would be shot in the arm for the larger Indo-Pacific agenda. It fills the vacuum created by the reluctance of Quad, which do not want to be seen as anti-China military alliance. Plus, if you have followed the news of yesterday or day before yesterday, the US State Department has said that the Coordinated Security Dialogue does not have any military aspect of it. It has now clearly stated that. Plus, it has nothing to do with China-related things. So, plus, India also does not want to be seen as anti-China. You see the speeches of the Prime Minister of India. There is nowhere the mention of China. You look at the Defense Minister's speeches. Direct mention of China is not there, because we understand, we accept that China is a bigger threat to us as compared to Pakistan, if you look at the military and the economic might of China, right? So that is how you talk about the important strengths of the AUKUS. Okay. So when we do not want to be a part of any partnership which is seen as anti-China, we see that this is going to fill this vacuum that exists here. Then, of course, the third important part is positive impact. Fourth will be negative impact. What would be the positive impact? It augments the aims of the Quad of countering the Chinese ambitions. First part. Second, it would be useful in responding to any military provocation by China if it happens, because critical nuclear submarine technology has been transferred by US to Australia. And it is important because earlier only UK had this technology. So that is why also it is a very important thing that has happened. Plus, it clarifies the role of the big powers in the Indo-Pacific. Now, because UK is also part of it, UK has witnessed Brexit, it has moved out of the European Union. That is why it clearly outlines the focus of the UK. Okay. Plus, US has already started focusing here. Australia is now making it clear what is exactly its position in the Indo-Pacific. That is why it clarifies the role of the big powers. Then it augments the defense capabilities of Australia in countering China, which will be very important, because Australia is an important member of the, or important part of the Pacific Ocean. Plus, it makes Quad grouping relatively palatable to ASEAN countries. Now, what is happening is the ASEAN countries have been reluctant of the geopolitics that is ongoing here. Okay, they don't, because some of these countries are tilted towards China, others are tilted toward United States of America. That is why they do not want to clearly say on which side are we tilted. Plus, their focus is on economic growth. Their focus is not on any kind of strategic rivalry here. Fine. So, because if this becomes the theater of geopolitics, it will, of course, impact their economic interests in the long run. That is why the Quad, which is seen as relatively soft on its agenda, will, of course, be more palatable to ASEAN countries, right, rather than AUKUS. So, when earlier what was happening, when the AUKUS was not formed, it was being seen, the Quad was being seen as one of the important anti-China military alliance. Okay. But when the Quad has been formed, this issue has now been taken from the shoulders of Quad now. Fine. What could be the negative impacts? Because France was not so happy with the formation of this. France had called the envoys of US and Australia because of the cancellation of the nuclear submarine deal of France with Australia. That is why it was not happy. So what would its impact be? So sidelining the France, which is also one of the important players in the European Union, you can say, right? Because now UK has exited. Germany and France are the two most important players in the European Union. You see the issue of Ukraine. What is happening here? Russia has now shown that will not resort to war in Ukraine because of the negotiation and the mediation that is being done by Emmanuel Macron, who is the president of France, right? So that exactly is the role of France in the big powers, right? But if you are sidelining France on this issue of Indo-Pacific, that will not be very important, very healthy thing to do. So sidelining of the France discourages the consensus on the larger issue of rise of China. Fine, negative impact. Okay, if you had to form the AUKUS, you should have involved France also. Okay, then it shrinks the potential space that is available for Quad in India, because India is a member of Quad only. India has not been offered the technology in AUKUS. So it shrinks the space for Quad in India. Quad will merely become a deliberative platform. You come, talk about global issues and go back home. Right? So it shrinks the potential space available for Quad and India to play any serious role in region security architecture. Plus, it will not be a very good thing in the long run. The militarization of Indo-Pacific, it can lead to arms race, which was witnessed in the Cold War times. Already the hypersonic missile thing has started. In the Taiwan Strait, we have seen the muscling of the armed forces of US, Taiwan, and China in this particular region. So this will not be in the long-term interest of the countries or the member countries of the Indo-Pacific, right? Plus, it makes it difficult for many ASEAN countries which want to remain neutral. We've already seen that part. Okay. So fair enough understanding of these things. What could be the conclusion? With India's reluctance to join any military alliance, AUKUS, by augmenting the Quad's objective, increases India's quest for a free and open Indo-Pacific in line with its principle of strategic autonomy. Fair enough, because India does not want to be a part of any military alliance. And when AUKUS has been formed, and if it augments the same, it has the same objective as Quad, that is the free and open Indo-Pacific region, it will of course be good for India. Plus, India does not want, so it is in line with India's policy objective of strategic autonomy. We'll pursue and engage with countries and organizations based on our interest, right? Not based on any mandate or force that is provided by the other superpowers of the world. So these are the things related to AUKUS. Plus, this is how we covered it in the mains revision classes. We talked about this issue straightforward in the class, that is, Quad could end up running out of the steam because of the formation of AUKUS security partnership discussed. Now, this was in news continuously. That's why we discussed this aspect properly in the class. Okay, and you see a same question has been asked, all in a different format, but this was the main theme of the question, that is it going to supersede the existing partnerships, right? So that is how you could have done. Plus, it was there in your mains compass magazine also. So I hope this discussion was fruitful to you. You have got a better understanding of the questions that were asked, how you could have approached these questions. Plus, the approach of answer writing, how you need to prepare for the answer writing is really important, right? First, understand the topic, generate knowledge, collect the knowledge, and then use this knowledge for preparing model answers, because that will give you a big time challenge. Once you start putting your things on paper into words, it is the most difficult thing to do, right? So any questions, queries that you have, we can answer them and address them. No queries, questions? Anybody? In the US-China question, can we write in the tabular form the arguments for US, China, and Russia? See, it was not that straight. You did not have to compare things, right? It had to be contrasted. In every statement, you had to show the contrast. Okay, it was not typically a straightforward compare the position of China and Russia in the present Cold War. So that would be a different thing to do. But it is not that straightforward. Okay. So that is one thing. Anybody else? टेंशन हो गई क्या आंसर्स देख के कैसे आंसर कैसे लिखेंगे? Good. Okay, so if nobody has any question and query, I'll see you tomorrow. Let's meet at 3:30 again tomorrow with the security related questions, how you could have approached them. Security is a very good topic to prepare. If you have prepared things properly, you could answer all the questions that are there. It's very predictable. Okay. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.